Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. Inflation weighing on the minds of American consumers. The Biden administration saying its social spending plan could slow it down, but others say more spending would make inflation worse. The Surgeon General speaks out against the court order blocking the federal vaccine mandate. This while a multi-state hospital system can't fire its non-compliant employees because of the order. Virginia Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin echoes his pledge to ban critical race theory in schools. Addressing his supporters at a weekend rally, Youngkin vowed to become an education governor. Steve Bannon has surrendered to the FBI on charges of contempt of Congress. He refused to appear in front of the committee investigating the January 6 Capitol breach. Bannon entered an FBI field office in Washington, D.C. this morning. He's expected to appear in court later in the afternoon. 3 days earlier, Bannon was indicted for refusing to appear for a congressional deposition and not providing documents in response to a subpoena. Both counts are misdemeanors and carry a minimum of 30 days and a maximum of 1 year in jail, along with fines between $100 and $1,000. Bannon is a former presidential advisor to Trump and sought to invoke Trump's executive privilege in not cooperating with the investigation. Now that President Biden's infrastructure bill is approaching the finish line, the White House is focusing on its Build Back Better plan. The administration says it could help reduce inflation, but not everyone agrees. NTD's Jessica Beatty reports.
President Biden's top economic advisor is urging lawmakers to pass the massive social spending package, saying it would slow down inflation, which is at a 31-year high.
But those concerns underscore why it's so important that we move forward on the Build Back Better legislation, this legislation that the House is going to consider this week. This, more than anything, will go at the costs that Americans face.
And Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen Sunday blaming the pandemic for America's economic woes, telling CBS she thinks things will get back to normal when demand and the labor supply normalize.
I would expect that if we're successful with the pandemic to be sometime in the second half of next year, I would expect prices to go back to normal.
But contrary to the administration's comments about reducing inflation, Moody's Analytics says the spending bills together would actually increase inflation by 0.3 percentage points over the next 3 years. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin raised concerns last week, tweeting, "The threat posed by record inflation to the American people is not transitory and is instead getting worse." Republicans, meanwhile, are blaming Biden's policies. Congressman Warren Davidson told NTD Business recently that massive spending is the root cause of inflation.
You throw fuel on the fire, it gets bigger, and that's the Democrats' agenda. They want to throw more on with Build Back Better. It's going to dump a lot of extra spending into the economy, and it has a big impact.
And Republican Fred Upton says Biden's social spending plan may need some more work before it has enough votes.
I don't think the votes are there yet. A good number of Democrats demanded and are going to receive a CBO report as to whether is it really paid for.
Biden's scheduled to sign the smaller infrastructure bill into law Monday afternoon. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
We've seen how important microchips are for the functioning of daily life and necessities, and how dependent we are on producers outside the U.S. to make the technology. Well, Congress is sitting on some legislation that would boost U.S. competitiveness with China. The idea is the U.S. would allocate more funding to chip production, but negotiations have stalled, and it's looking less and less likely to actually make it through to law before next year. The bill did pass the Senate with bipartisan support back in June, but the House of Representatives chose not to vote on it. The House instead chose to draft a new bill that focuses on foreign policy. 5 months later, the House has not voted on its own bill, nor has it taken up the Senate's bill. And the legislative agenda is packed for the rest of the year, so there isn't much time for it. The Senate bill involved industrial policy, something quite rare for legislation. It would authorize $190 billion to strengthen U.S. technology and research, and an additional $54 billion to increase production and research into semiconductors and telecommunications equipment. There is a worldwide shortage of computer chips, and it has affected production of everything, from cell phones to home appliances to vehicles. Money in the bill would go to chip makers to expand manufacturing. President Biden is preparing to take on one of his biggest foreign policy challenges. He's set to hold a high-stakes virtual summit with Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping tonight. It will be the first face-to-face meeting between the two since Biden became president. The two leaders have spoken twice by phone this year, most recently a 90-minute conversation on September 9th. The meeting comes amid strained relations between the two countries, especially over Taiwan. Biden is expected to raise concerns about China's unfair economic trade practices, human rights violations, and threats to the rules-based international order, as well as the regime's behavior toward Taiwan. Ahead of time, the top diplomats from both sides exchanged stern warnings over the issue. The FBI says hackers compromised their email system over the weekend. The hackers then sent tens of thousands of messages warning of a possible cyber attack. The Federal Bureau of Investigation said messages appeared to come from a legitimate company email address. It added that hardware impacted by the incident was quickly taken offline. A copy of an email posted on Twitter showed a subject line of urgent threat actor in systems. It also appeared to end with a sign-off from the Department of Homeland Security. The FBI is part of the Department of Justice. Bloomberg News first reported on the incident on Saturday. The Surgeon General said the court ruling that blocked President Biden's vaccine mandate would be a setback for public health. It comes as a hospital system that operates in 19 states can no longer fire its unvaccinated employees because of the ruling. Vivek Murthy, the U.S. Surgeon General, denounced the Fifth Circuit Court's ruling blocking the Biden administration's vaccine mandate for private businesses.
Well, Chris, I think it would be a setback for public health. What we know very clearly is that when people get vaccinated, and the more people who get vaccinated, the quicker we're able to bring this pandemic to an end, the more lives we can ultimately save.
It comes after OSHA earlier this month rolled out its rules for the mandate. The requirement has sparked widespread protests, and according to many studies, fully vaccinated people can spread the virus to other vaccinated people, and the CDC supports policies that put naturally immune people at a disadvantage despite it not having any data on people with natural immunity spreading the virus. This, while a hospital system that operates in 19 states can't fire workers over the vaccine. Oklahoma Attorney General John O'Connor filed for a restraining order against Ascension Healthcare's mandate. A Tulsa district judge granted it on Friday. The Republican AG said, "This evening, the Tulsa District Court granted the state's application for temporary restraining order in our case to keep Ascension Healthcare from carrying out its plan to fire employees who were unfairly denied religious exemptions from their nationwide COVID-19 vaccination mandate." NTD reached out to Ascension for comment, but haven't heard back yet. What's more, the Pentagon has received a request by Oklahoma's governor to get an exemption to the vaccine mandate for the state's National Guard. Press Secretary John Kirby made the announcement. He did not elaborate on how the Defense Department would respond, though he said Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says a vaccinated force is a more ready force. Furthermore, a lawsuit on behalf of 17 doctors, nurses, and medical professionals has been filed in the Supreme Court. It's against New York State's vaccine mandate for health workers. The lawyer calls the mandate a religious crusade to force medical professionals to be vaccinated. The governor, Kathy Hochul, has previously said unvaccinated people are ignoring what God wants. Her office did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The Florida state legislature is coming back in a special session starting today, aimed at blocking federal vaccine mandates. Governor Ron DeSantis called the special session asking state lawmakers to pass more measures related to the pandemic. 4 bills are currently before state lawmakers. If passed, they'd increase penalties for businesses and local governments that require workers to be vaccinated against COVID-19. They would also strengthen the governor's executive orders, including one that gives parents the right to decide whether their kids wear masks in school. Democrats complain the governor has gone against the Biden administration's strategy. New York City's frontline workers protested over the weekend. Many of them say last year they were considered essential workers, but now are expendable, all because they haven't gotten the vaccine. NTD's Jason Perry spoke to some of them at the rally.
A group of frontline and essential workers rallied outside of Pfizer headquarters in New York City over the weekend. They say they're not anti-vaccine, but are against vaccine mandates. Many are currently on unpaid leave.
So many people think when somebody dictates something to you and says something to you, you just got to do it. And I said, no. And everyone's like, yeah, you say no now, but wait until they come for your job. And I said, they can have it.
Donna, who has worked as a neonatal nurse for 30 years, wore a trash bag to the protest. She explained when nurses were treating COVID-19 patients and they didn't have enough personal protective equipment, they had to wear trash bags to keep themselves safe.
By not standing alongside your brothers and sisters for their choice and their rights to choose what goes in their body, to give them a right to work and support their families and put bread on the table and a roof over their heads, you're saying that they're garbage.
A sanitation worker, also on unpaid leave, spoke with his children on stage.
Sanitation workers work outdoors. So I can dine outdoors with my children, no problem, without a vaccine. But me and my fellow brothers and sisters cannot go to work without a vaccine. It's crazy.
Josephine is a manager at Rocco's restaurant. They've chosen not to deny service to unvaccinated guests. She's filed a lawsuit against New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio over the vaccine mandates. Teachers for Choice founder Michael Caine has also been battling de Blasio in court.
The Department of Education has already conceded that they have to reinstate the 15 named plaintiffs in our case to our jobs at the DOE because their religious exemption process was unconstitutional.
He added that the path to justice may be long, but it's a path they will succeed on. Now the guests have finished speaking and they've taken their message to the streets. Next week they're going to do it all over again on Saturday at Central Park in their stand against the vaccine mandates. Jason Perry, NTD News, New York.
2 weeks after winning Virginia's election, Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin re-emphasized his commitment to the state's education. At a weekend thank you rally, he told supporters he plans to use his veto pen and rule out the teaching of critical race theory in schools.
I want one thing. I want all of you to know that I am going to be the education governor. This is going to happen.
Virginia's governor-elect Glenn Youngkin held a rally outside the Loudoun County Public Schools Administration Building on Saturday. Throughout the night, he thanked supporters who braved the cold to hear him speak. In particular, he called the contribution of Northern Virginia momentous in a race won by 64,000 votes.
Versus the last governor's race. First, we got 25,000 more votes in Loudoun County. We got 18,000 more votes in Prince William County. And we got 35,000 more votes in Fairfax County. I mean, folks, it's unbelievable. This is you.
Youngkin credited parents in Loudoun County with sparking momentum for education issues and spreading it across the Commonwealth. The crowd cheered and held up signs that read, "Parents for Youngkin," after the governor-elect renewed his pledge to rule out the teaching of critical race theory.
We're going to make sure that we're focused on our entire history, the good and the bad. Folks, this is not about hiding our past. This is about knowing where we've come from so we will know where we are going. But I will tell you that we will not be teaching critical race theory in our schools.
Critical race theory advocates for a critique of social issues through the lens of racial struggle. Opponents say this ideology is being promoted in schools, but Loudoun County officials insist that it's not embedded in local curriculum. Youngkin also promised to lower the cost of living on day one of his term through measures like removing the state's grocery tax and deferring the gas tax for 1 more year. Loudoun County Sheriff Michael Chapman and Fairfax County Councilman Song Yi also joined Youngkin at the rally. The new governor's inauguration day is set for January 15th.
The Chinese woman who snuck into Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort while Trump was president is being deported almost 2 years after serving her jail sentence. The Chinese national was found to have lied to Secret Service agents and entered the resort while Trump was on the resort grounds. Investigators found her with devices meant to detect hidden cameras and microphones, as well as various other electronic equipment. She was also found with a flash drive that contained computer virus malware. The court could not clarify whether or not she was a spy and what her intention was, but she was convicted of trespassing and lying to federal officers. After serving 8 months in prison, she was transferred to immigration authorities. They said they held her almost 2 additional years because the pandemic didn't allow them to deport her back to China sooner. A Miami-based investment firm has reached a deal to buy Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. for $375 million. The hotel is in a historic building a few blocks from the White House. The hotel company is owned by former President Trump and his family. The Wall Street Journal says CGI Merchant Group is in contract to acquire the lease. The Trump Organization currently leases the building from the U.S. government. The hotel is known for hosting foreign dignitaries, and in recent years, it has been a popular gathering spot for Trump supporters. The hotel is in D.C.'s second tallest structure after the Washington Monument. The building previously housed the U.S. Post Office Department headquarters. The Journal says CGI has reached an agreement with Hilton to have the property managed and branded by Hilton's Waldorf Astoria Group. An over 50-year-old bank robbery cold case is finally solved. A U.S. Marshal found the answer to the case his father investigated decades earlier. Theodore Conrad robbed a bank in 1969 after becoming obsessed with bank robbery movie The Thomas Crown Affair. He robbed the bank he worked at in Cleveland. A few days later, the bank found money missing from the vault and Conrad missing from work. Peter Elliott connected Theodore Conrad and Boston suburb resident Thomas Rendell. Rendell died in May from lung cancer. Elliott got a tip to check the obituary, where he found clues to a case his father spent his career trying to solve. Elliott saw coincidences between descriptions in Rendell's obituary and what he knew of Conrad's life. When handwriting from Conrad's younger days was analyzed against the older Rendell, it was discovered the two men were the same person. Coming up, New York City welcomes a 79-foot Norway spruce, this year's Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. The lighting ceremony is set for December 1st.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new Precious Metals IRA. Call now.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. This is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work.
The new MyPillow towels are exclusively made with 100% USA combed cotton with proprietary technology and with maximum absorbency. They dry you faster and are guaranteed to work.
I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow. And to thank you for all your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. Go to MyPillow.com to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you get my dog beds for as low as $19.99, or for a limited time, you can get my 6-piece towel sets, regularly $109.99, now only $39.99. The lowest price ever with your promo code.
The 6th anniversary of a French tragedy has arrived. Back in November 2015, more than 100 people died in a bloody terrorist strike on Paris. This year, a trial to decide the fate of those involved is underway. NTD correspondent David Vives has more.
France is honoring those who suffered in the country's deadliest ever attack during peacetime. Over the weekend, French Prime Minister and other leaders commemorated the 6th anniversary of the 2015 tragedy in and around Paris that killed 130 people. On November 13, 2015, groups of gunmen and suicide bombers attacked the perimeter of the Stade de France Sports Stadium, the Bataclan Music Hall, and a string of 6 bars and cafes. This year's commemorations is marked by the trial of the terrorists who organized and executed the strike, which started on September 8th. The court's hearing brought new information about the strike, but also raised new questions. Former French President François Hollande, who was leading France at the time of the attacks, testified in the trial last week. He said he was informed at the time that terrorists came to France in 2015. Hidden in a migrant wave, they were able to skirt identification. The former president has faced blame for this by political opponents, including one conservative figure making a bid for the country's 2022 presidential election. Other officials are set to testify in the ongoing trial later this month. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
And now to Italy, where a white truffle weighing just 30 ounces sold for nearly $120,000. The prized mushroom went to Hong Kong after an auction held simultaneously in Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, and Moscow. A Michelin-starred Italian chef bought the white tuber. Umbrato Bambana runs a restaurant called Otto e Mezzo in Hong Kong. These tubers grow naturally in just a few regions of Italy and Central Europe. They grow underground near the roots of trees. Well-trained dogs and experienced hunters can find them by their odor, which the truffle only gives off for a limited period of time. Unlike black truffles, which can be cultivated on plantations, white truffles only grow naturally in forests. It is one of the most coveted and expensive ingredients in the world. New York City ushered in the holiday season on Saturday with the arrival of a 79-foot Norway spruce. The towering timber will serve as this year's Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
The 12-ton tree was hauled in from the Price family home in Elkton, Maryland. It's the first time the tree has come from the state since the tradition began 8 decades ago.
Yeah, the atmosphere here at Rockefeller Center was electric. A lot of people very interested in the whole process, and a lot of people smiling, and a lot of energy throughout the crowd. And the crowd's really everywhere, all the way around, all sides. That was very, very interesting and very cool.
The spruce will be adorned with more than 50,000 multicolored lights and topped with a 900-pound star with 70 spikes covered in 3 million crystals. The tree was cut down on Thursday and removed by a crane. The spruce is about 85 years old. The lighting ceremony is scheduled for December 1st.
So the tree will be lit with over 50,000 lights, and there really is nothing like the magic of setting foot on Rockefeller Center campus at Christmas time with ice skaters in the rink underneath Prometheus and the tree illuminated and the Swarovski star on top of it. It really feels like the Christmas season comes to life nowhere better than here.
Eric Posey is Rockefeller Center's head gardener. He found this year's tree in March.
Today is beautiful. We put up a beautiful Norway spruce that's 79 feet tall, it's 46 feet wide, and it weighs 12 tons. We just stood it up and it looks absolutely gorgeous.
The spruce is expected to remain up through early January. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade unveiled brand new floats at a test event in New York on Saturday. Last year's parade didn't allow spectators due to the pandemic.
Thanksgiving is less than 2 weeks away, and the annual parade will feature floats, performers, and giant balloons.
Today is Balloon Fest. It's our annual event where it's sort of the culmination of our balloon development process. So we go from our early designs to our fabrication to our internal testing, and this is the opportunity for us to bring the balloons outside, some of our expert crew, and run it through some paces.
New balloons this year will include pop culture icon Grogu, better known as Baby Yoda, from The Mandalorian, and 2 new Pokemon balloons, Pikachu and Eevee, honoring the beloved series' 25th anniversary.
We've got 10 marching bands, we have 15 giant character balloons, we've got 28 floats, we've got a whole host of performances, over 30 heritage balloons. It's the spectacle that we all know and love, plussed up with a couple of special features, so really excited to be back.
The parade will finish along a 1-block stretch of 34th Street in front of the retailer's flagship Manhattan store.
We're excited to bring this great tradition back to New York City and to the nation. You know, we usher in the holiday season with this great parade, and it's an opportunity for us to really celebrate that we're back. It's going to be a spectacle. It's a spectacle of love, entertainment, music, dance.
The Thanksgiving Day Parade will be broadcast on national television from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
A pair of polar bears are now enjoying a purpose-built habitat at the Oregon Zoo in Portland, where they're seen playfully sparring, chasing one another, and splashing into a saltwater pool. A 5-year-old polar bear named Amelia Gray and her half-sister named Nora met for the first time this week in the habitat. The compound, known as Polar Passage, features 2 large connecting habitats, each with a large saltwater pool, shelters, and natural terrain. A zoo official says visitors will likely see more playful wrestling, swimming, and diving from the 2 bears in the coming weeks. The species is classified as threatened under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Before you go, here's something you should know. Don't forget you can catch all of NTD's programs on television. NTD Business premieres live Mondays through Fridays at 5 p.m. We broadcast to many of your favorite platforms, Apple TV and Roku, for example. We're also rapidly growing on cable, satellite, and over-the-air all across the United States. Just go to ntd.com/TV, type in your zip code, and find all the ways you can watch